All right, so welcome everybody. We are at our first gathering, goddess gathering, for this particular group of women. And when I was looking for a theme, well, the theme always finds the group. So the theme that we're going to be rediscovering today is very much appropriate for the seasons and the celebrations of this time. We're just through solstice. That was 4 weeks ago. And then now we are still under the energy. Solstice is typically the energy of Venus and Aphrodite as the goddess. And in another 4 weeks, we'll be headed into another goddess that I think will be even more pertinent. But I wanted to have us all kind of entertain the idea that we might not really know the true story of who this goddess really is. And before we do that, I always like to start. Let's go ahead and start just by closing our eyes and taking a few deep breaths. So as you breathe in maybe potentially for a count of 4. And then just pause. And as you breathe out, exhale through your mouth for that same count of 4. Breathing in. Count of 4, maybe 5, whatever feels comfortable, and then breathing out. 3 more times, just easy inhale, balanced breath, easy exhale. Breathing in. Breathing out. One more time. All right, so then let's begin with a little bit of drumming. The question that I want to start with for our gathering is, what would you first like to let go of today? Notice what comes up for you. Also, what would you like to call in for today? Whenever you look at this again, whenever you look at this for the first time, just notice those themes. And we're going to do just a little bit of drumming just to kind of allow the vibration of the drum first to clear us. So imagine this is a medicine drum. The vibrations are so high that anything that's heavy is just simply going to fall out of your field. So whatever you wanted to let go of today, whatever that intention was, allow this drum, the voice of this drum, to clear it from your field. Everybody make sure you're muted, please. Next, bring into your mind's eye whatever it was that you wanted to call in for your day-to-day. And as the rhythm picks up, imagine you're calling it in. Right into the seat of your soul. Wonderful. And now take a nice deep breath and exhale and just say to yourself aloud or internally, and so it is. So you're clear and you're calling in as we embark together on this journey. Now, at the start of the goddess course, I want to read something that I think is really poignant for us as we are all women gathered at this juncture. I know there's a couple men who are interested who might join us, but it's an excerpt from a book called Gather the Women by Jean Shinoda Bolen. And I think it's worthwhile as we're kind of at this first meeting, this seminal part of our journey together, and people will be watching this over time to just really call it out that we're gathering as women. And so I'm going to quote the reading. Twice before, American women have changed their world and been an influence on the world through collective action. The first was women's suffragette movement. Political equality, the right to vote, was the goal. The second had been simply called the women's movement. Social, personal, legal, and economic equality were the issues and goals. I believe a third movement is stirring below the surface of collective consciousness and is gathering momentum. The intention is multifold: to stop violence against women by involving women in prevention of violence, resolution of conflicts, and restoration of peace. Patriarchy is toxic to peace. Domestic violence, school-ground violence, street violence, terrorism, and wars have the same origins in a need of aggressive males to dominate and be predator instead of prey. The antidote to patriarchy is the acknowledgement of interdependence, which is feminine wisdom. Until women collectively become involved in creating a culture of peace to stop violence begetting violence in the human family, women and children will continue to be the primary casualties, and Mother Earth herself will be at risk. The urgent message from Mother is a call that can be heard and heeded anywhere on the planet. Wherever women with a sense of sisterhood and maternal concern gather, the message will be received. My words were written for you. If you need the words to go with the feelings, you already have. If you need support to believe that you can do something, or if you need inspiration or a strong nudge to act on the assignment that you know is yours to do. Or you may need information about gender differences to learn that women have qualities that would best serve humanity now, right now. Disclaimers may be helpful at the beginning. This is not about replacing patriarchy with matriarchy. I do know that women can be as power-oriented and as unempathetic as I am saying men as a gender learn to be. And there are lots of men who are nurturing and empathetic as women are supposed to be. I'm well aware of the complexities and individual differences which goddesses in every woman and gods in every man, specifically addressed as archetypally based. Having said this, I take the position here that women as a gender as a whole, not every woman, but women generally, have the wisdom that is needed. It's time to gather the women and save the world. So that's a really wonderful call, I think, to our first gathering together. And another question I want us to consider before we head into the journey with the goddess is, what does divine feminine mean to you? And that's going to be a question that we'll introduce to ourselves again and again and again. And in my experience, it's likely going to change. I know 6 moons ago, my definition was different than what I'd say today. So what is your definition of divine feminine? And what does being female, being a woman, mean to you? And it might just be something that we keep in our heart for right now. We'll have some time for sharing, but let's just sort of sit with that for a second. What does divine feminine mean to me, and what does being a woman mean to me? And from here, I'm going to move into just a little bit of a introduction. I mentioned that we are in the time of the goddess Venus and Aphrodite. And one of the interesting things about these goddesses is that they can be a little bit, in my experience, when I was looking around for information on, and when I bring to mind what I've learned about Venus and Aphrodite, they're not necessarily really great images that I'm particularly proud of. And why do I say that? I say that because I'm looking for a picture while I'm talking. Hang tight. I thought I had it up. Because Venus, we know of as the goddess of love. We know as the goddess of fertility, but we also know her as Venus, the goddess who had many affairs. Venus, the goddess of sexual exploitation. So there's these, these kind of horror is a strong image, but there's definitely that aspect of Venus needing to be rebirthed. So when we consider the goddess Venus, I want us to consider that the depiction that we know of her is very much one that has been informed by patriarchy. And patriarchy is a strong word. I guess the other way, maybe it's just the aggressive culture that we have come to know to be based in Greco-Roman times. So let me pull up Birth of Venus. This is a famous painting by Botticelli, and I'm going to share my screen with you because I can't quite figure out a better way to share this with you. So just give me a second to share the screen. Thank you guys for your patience. Start share. All right, so here we have this image that many of us maybe have seen. It's a famous painting about the birth of Venus. And the story goes from Greek and Roman times that Venus is birthed from the castration of a god that preceded Zeus, and his genitals with the sea foam birthed Venus. And she did not have a childhood. She arrives on this beautiful shell, fully grown, very Western Caucasian woman looking, and she's being blown in by the winged creatures are the nymphs who are blowing her to shore, and then the woman or women who are on her side on land are greeting her with these beautiful gowns, and she's known as the goddess of love and of fertility. So whether or not you've ever actually seen that, it's interesting to take in that that is one layer, and that layer has many other deeper cultural layers before it. And I want to share a story that I've shared in some podcasts, and it's about what happened with the Greeks and the Romans as they moved through Europe. There were many native tribes, especially, I guess I'm going to speak specifically to Britain, to Ireland, and to Scotland, and to Wales, and those areas. There were many native cultures who inhabited those areas, and when Rome and Greece rolled through, they murdered and they killed all these native cultures, which is why many Caucasian people who, I don't know, you know, we all, a lot of us are wondering where our roots are, because if we haven't had a solid tradition, and what ended up happening with Greece and Rome is that there was a mass amount of murder so that they could take over. And what was lost then was all these native traditions. And what was put in place was this idea of high culture. And it was very much like modern times, where it was the best of the best, things were faster, you could have things from around the world, and it was this facade of it being better, but it lost the real stories. So we know Venus and Aphrodite from the lens of that culture that did that domination. And what I want to offer us is a deeper look into who she might really be. I'm going to start here with, I'm not going to go too far back. This is the same culture, but at least we have here a woman who's looking at more normal bodied, and where to begin? Okay, so we have Greek is Aphrodite, Roman is Venus, Phoenicians are Astarte, and all of these goddesses were associated with fertility, with love, with sexuality, with mothering. Many other cultures had many other origins, but as we sort of dig deeper, we go to, there's also the goddess Tanit, the goddess Ishtar. And I want to point out, let's go to Astarte next. I think is kind of an interesting goddess to look at. She is, where are you, Astarte? Let's see, hang tight. Here she is. She looks very much like, I'm gonna get better at sharing. There she is. She looks very much like Venus, the Venus that I just showed you, in the sense that she's a voluptuous goddess. In this image, like, it looks like she's got gemstones, rubies or something in her eyes and in her navel. And what's interesting to note is that she always has that sort of, looks like cow horns. It's the crescent moon over her head. And that's one of the things that was associated with this goddess who potentially predated Venus and Aphrodite. And it also is something that has been potentially co-opted by modern cultures beyond Greece and Rome. But if we look at this image of the Blessed Mother, this is the Virgin of Guadalupe. If you look at what she's standing on, I was raised Catholic, so she's always standing on this cow horn looking shape, this crescent moon, which is the symbol for the goddess. So the thesis statement I'm going to get to is we're seeking to potentially embody the goddess ourselves and find a good story about Venus and Aphrodite, is that Greece and Rome offered one teeny tiny disempowered lens of the true power of the goddess. And there's many goddesses, and they're almost like different aspects of personalities of the overarching primordial feminine energy. So this is another aspect of the motherly goddess, and the crescent moon is often associated with the motherly energies. So one of the myths about Venus that was said that she was betrothed to Hephaestus. She was forced to marry him by Zeus, according to Greco-Roman myth. And I mentioned earlier that that's likely not true, because actually Aphrodite Venus is older than Zeus. So if there was a woman who was older, it's interesting to think that the younger god would force her to marry someone who she didn't want to be married to. So that's just a little bit of a lens into the aspects of the stories that were made up. And the punchline to that story is she was so upset that she had to marry this guy who she didn't like that she spent her whole life having affairs, which I don't personally feel in what I think. And as with everything, you're going to be your own truth teller. This is just a suggestion. And I like to encourage people to think of what feels good and expansive for you. And that's likely an aspect of truth. So I'm going to take us next back to Egypt, because in ancient Greece, Aphrodite was often identified with the goddess Hathor. And this is where things get, I think, a little bit interesting. So here we have Hathor. This is, she's got the uraeus, she's got the horns, or the crescent, and she's got the full golden sun above her head. And Hathor is the Egyptian goddess. She's the goddess of the sky, but she's also the goddess of women, of joy, of sexuality, of fertility, and of love, all of which are very much within Venus's stead. And Hathor's worship originated in the 3rd millennium BCE. And I want to get to next to help us kind of maybe consider that Venus and Aphrodite are just simply the Greco-Roman interpretation of a much older goddess. I want to share with you next a temple that is in Egypt. It's the Temple of Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut is the second and most powerful reigning female pharaoh. She was the only female who reigned with full male power. It's very rare to have a female rule at all in Egypt, but this is her temple right here. And Hatshepsut venerated the goddess Hathor and very much sought to embody her. And inside this temple, there's a temple within the temple. And so I've showed you the original image of Hathor, but I want to share next how this temple was built. You can see here in the columns that this is Hathor's face pointing in all 4 directions in protection and in veneration. So this is all around the outside of the temple. It's also in the sacred temple within the temple that this famous female pharaoh built. So something interesting happened here. I'm going to get to share a video about it, but I want to really briefly just say that, you know, her rule wasn't always liked by a lot of people. She had a stepson, Thutmose III, who was super jealous of her because she was so successful and because she was a woman and because she wasn't supposed to be in power, but she somehow figured out how to reign in a graceful and non-egotistical way. And what ended up happening was he murdered her out of jealousy. And it's thought that he spat upon her. And the temple, if you go today, is very much defaced. That temple that of Hatshepsut, I'll put that picture back up. Defaced, but not dishonored. So what he wanted to do, which is interesting, he wanted to take all the powerful gods and goddesses that she was evoking, and he wanted to just basically clear the whole place out and make it sterile. So you kind of get that sense, especially of the female deities. But one of the things that I thought was so interesting, and this is kind of just an aside about the power of the goddess. So this young man, her stepson, has murdered her, is thoroughly destroyed and looted her temple. And he's now taking all the gods from the temple. So look up at the rocks here in the area kind of above the temple. One of the women that I studied about Egypt with, her name is Patricia Corey. There's a book called Where Pharaohs Dwell that I think is super cool. She's a channel. She's also, you know, been in Egypt since she was a kid. So it's simultaneously an intuitive take on this, but I think it stands to reason. She was in this temple, and when she stood outside, she was able to see first during daylight. I'm going to show you this photo. This is kind of interesting. I took this picture this morning. I apologize that it's not super clear. This is from this book. She was able to make out in the stones above many different gods of the Egyptian pantheon. So here she's kind of marked it in marker. This is where she has suggested that even though this guy tried to deface everything, the gods actually lived, and maybe they moved up, maybe they were always there, but they existed in the hills, so they could not be, the goddess who was invoking this in right energy could not be defaced. There's one more that I want to share that I just think is kind of interesting, because it shows us that just like in the Gather the Women quote, there's nothing wrong. We don't have to go to war, that all is in balance. It's just our intention. So Ma'at, you can see in the bottom picture, she's written it, she's kind of shown it in, outlined it. And it's, again, I apologize. This is a photo I tried to take myself, and I just got a new phone. But anyway, you can see how in the evening, the goddess Ma'at with her feather was also, at least in Patricia Corey's mind, able to be seen at this very sacred space. So why am I talking about all this? I'm talking about all this because as we consider ourselves modern women who are seeking to remember who the goddess is and how we embody her, we have during this time of the year traditional celebrations of Venus and Aphrodite. So it's really a cool time to consider our own selves as our source of what is true, and thinking about the things that make us feel good, empowered, on the right path, able to do the work that we're here to do. So we're seeking to remember this myth, recreate it, claim it for our own. We can go as far back, at least this is the research that I was able to pull together for this gathering, to Egypt, to this temple of Hatshepsut. And this temple is invoked to the primordial energy of, I am suggesting, Venus and Aphrodite in a broader context, because it's invoking Hathor, who is also holds the same stead of fertility, motherhood, sexuality, love, and joy. So I want to next share with you a video. I'm going to, this is going to be the only video that I share, but I think this woman does a really astute job at talking about the importance of Hatshepsut's journey, and we can relate it back to Venus and Aphrodite. So I'm going to take my headphones out and I'm going to start to play this video, and then we'll come back.
Life is unfair, and there is a double standard for women. And I don't think these things are debated. given that, Hatshepsut's story helps us to see how somebody saw that reality, took that reality on board, didn't deny it, didn't say it didn't exist, and moved around the blockades in her path to get what it was that she wanted. Hatshepsut was very aware of what people might have thought about a woman's power being self-motivated. And so she always depicted herself with great humility. Her statues do not ever show her in a pose of regal pride. She's always very carefully showing humility towards the gods and towards the position that she's in. Hatshepsut also knew that she had to link her rule to the entire society, and that the entire society had to see the good of it. And that if she was too self-motivated, or even perceived as being too self-motivated, then it would all be over. The reason we don't remember her, and this is really the crux of it all, is because she was so good. Because think about the women we do remember in our society, those female rulers. They're always the ones who either had the sexual affairs, got beaten in battle, ended up being the whore of Babylon. Those are the women that we like to tell tales about. And that's what our cultural memory really holds on to. It's almost like, as biological creatures, when a woman takes power, we feel we need to memorialize that in a negative way and remember the failures and keep repeating those stories. And here we have a woman, Hatshepsut, who did everything right, who was incredibly successful, and yet no one can pronounce her name. And she's the one that nobody tells tales about, because it's not in a patriarchal society's best interest to tell those tales.
Thank you guys for hanging in there with me on that. I think that she did a really good, Kara did a really good job talking about all the things that I'm suggesting, I suppose. So where does this lead us as we are seeking to remember the goddess in general, and we're seeking to learn and potentially make right and learn for ourselves a story of truth about Venus, Aphrodite? It lends itself to have us kind of with a broad lens realize that the general process of separating from the goddess, you know, it's power over versus power with. And it's something interesting I came across that the Greeks and the Romans did in battle when they lost a battle, when they were not able to conquer a people. They would take their sacred, holy places or statues or goddesses, and they actually took Venus. It was the Battle of Lake Transmene. They took Venus at Eris. They took the statue and they took over the power, and then they conquered the people. And so that's actually one of the ways that the reason why Julius Caesar adopted Venus as his protectress was because he was doing it out of a power over way. So that does not mean that is that goddess's story. That means that all that simply happened was that civilization took her and incorporated into their foundational myths. So we get to look at it with that lens. And I really want to encourage us to look at what feels good and empowering for us, for you as a woman. Does love feel good to me? Yes. Joy? Yes. Fertility? Yes. Sexuality? Yes. Creativity? Yes. Mothering? Yes. All of those things are great. And maybe I want to invite us to keep those when we think about this goddess, and let her be a multicultural goddess. She's depicted in Caucasian skin because that is the culture that made her known. That's the only myth that we really know. But if we really consider our own selves as truth, and this goddess is likely ubiquitous around the world, can we let that be her story? And can we just consider how that story hits home? And that we don't have to, you know, as the recording said, you know, we don't have to seek to, like the media wants to do, you know, memorialize, create the drama, and then that's the wound that we remember. Perhaps there were things that happened that weren't the best sometimes, but I think really as we seek to empower ourselves, it's a really cool time for us to remember. So the next thing I want to do, I want to offer a little mini ritual for us gathered together right now, and then for the people who may listen to the recording. As this time, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, we're just after summer solstice. Venus and Aphrodite are celebrated at this time. So let's, with new eyes, seek to meet her and invite her in. And to start, one of the things that I like to do is to call in the 4 directions. So you don't have to turn, but you can just bring your mind's eye, bring your awareness to the direction where the sun rises. You likely know where that is every day from where you're seated. And just imagine you're turning to face where the sun rises, the direction of the east, often associated with Archangel Michael. The colors gold and yellow, and the element in that direction is air. So maybe even imagine you feeling a breeze on your skin. And just as you're seeking to connect with those elements, they are connecting with you. Just like the goddess is never actually disconnected from us. It's us who's disconnected from her. I'll talk about that in a second. But let's connect to that element: east, air, golden yellow, Archangel Raphael. And we're going to next take a quarter clockwise turn. In your mind's eye, you can just simply imagine you're turning to face the direction of the south. Colors red, Archangel Michael. Element is fire. So just seeking to create those connections. That's all you need to do. We'll take another quarter clockwise turn and imagine you're facing the direction of the west. West is water. West is Archangel Gabriel. The color is blue. Just simply seek to connect. One more quarter clockwise turn to face the north next. The north is the element earth. Archangel Uriel, and it's a trifold color. It's like an olive green, a burnt orange, and black. Just seeking to establish that connection. We're creating a sacred circle around us individually. And then one more quarter turn, just back to where we started, back to the direction where the sun rises. And so we've created a sacred circle around ourselves and around the whole gathering of women. And now let's invite the goddess, Aphrodite and Venus, potentially also Hathor, and maybe even, if you'd like, Hatshepsut. Any other goddesses. This is primordial goddess energy that we're working with right now, so you can't get it wrong, but feel this fertile goddess energy come in. And the idea is, just like Mother Earth, we can separate ourselves from Mother Earth, but Mother Earth is never actually separate from us. It's us in our minds that's separate. We separate ourselves. Just the same thing happens with the goddess. The goddess energy is always present. So we just need to make the intention to connect with it and notice it's right there. It's beneath us. It's around us. It's enveloping us. And so this goddess energy is the goddess of love, the goddess of fertility. And one of the things that came through for our first gathering is self-love, because we can only love as much as we love ourselves. We can only give love if we truly love ourselves. So one of the, I believe, truly noble things to seek to do at the outset is self-love. So we're going to be connecting to aspects of ourselves and blessing them. And I invite you first to connect to your feet. You can just bring your awareness down to your feet. You can place your hands on your feet if you'd like, but just connect to the soles of your feet and be grateful. Give gratitude and blessings for the soles of your feet, for guiding and walking you on your path on this earth. Every moment, your feet are grounding you down. They're walking you through your life. And just bless your feet. Be grateful for them. And then we'll move up next to the base chakra, right at the base of the spine. You can just in your mind's eye connect to that energy center. It's often colored bright red, and connect to your base chakra and be grateful for it. Bless it for grounding you into the earth, for keeping you present, for keeping you alive and sheltered and fed and healthy. And just see if you can be grateful to yourself. Your body is doing this all the time, beyond your mind. And we'll move up next to our sacral center, just below the navel. These centers sit right at the spine, right in the central energy column. This is our center for passion, for creativity, for expressive sexuality, for life force energy. Be grateful to this center for its vitality, for its energy, and bless it. This is the seat of your creativity. And we'll move up next to the solar plexus, right where the ribs are. This is the power center. The color is really golden yellow. This is where we accomplish our daily activities. This is where we get our self-confidence to create the world we want to see, to manifest. So be grateful to this power center. Bless it for helping you to accomplish everything that you do in your life. Wonderful. We'll move up next to our heart center, right where your physical heart is, but at the center of your chest. The color is often emerald green. This is, if anything, the place where Venus and Aphrodite reign. This is the giving and receiving of love. Heart chakra is all about love, self-love, radiating love. So just be grateful to this. I've come to know it as the most powerful part of ourselves. Bless it. The heart sends out electromagnetic fields far stronger and far more distant than our brains. So just connect to that heart center and feel the love for your own heart. Bless it. And then we'll continue up to the throat. Our self-expression, our creativity, our communication comes through our throat center. Color is often light blue. Be grateful for your ability to express yourself. Bless your communication. Bless your throat center for its service to your whole being every day. And moving up next to the third eye, the middle of your forehead, but often at the center of your skull. This is our intuition center. This is our internal wisdom. This is our deep knowing. This is this, when I mentioned this sense of truth, of yes, of right. Bless this center for its power, for its all-seeing, truth-seeing ability. Be grateful for it. Maybe even invite it to light up a little bit more at this juncture, as we recognize our intuition is oh so necessary. And then up to the top of the head, the crown center, the crown chakra. Color is beautiful purple. And this is our connection to spirit, to source, to the goddess energy. So again, feel this primordial goddess energy coming in through the top of your head, and be so grateful for this center, much like all the organs of our physical body that function every day without us doing anything. These energy centers are doing the same thing. They're functioning all the time. So bless your crown chakra for its seamless, ever-present ability to connect to source, to goddess energy. And then finally to the palms of your hands. If any of you do healing work, you'll know that the palms of your hands are where many healers feel the most light and energy come through, at least right now on our planet. So, but without even formally doing healing work, consider your palms as this place where your energy flows through, your love, your healing ability. Every meal you make, every letter you type, everything you touch with your hands is imbued with your healing energy, with your love. So bless your hands. Be grateful to your hands for all the goodness that you have already spread and you will continue to spread, all the love that will come through your hands. And then either aloud or to yourself, let's speak. Goddess Venus, Goddess Aphrodite, Goddess Hathor, Hatshepsut, Primordial Goddess energy, we invite you here and we ask you as Goddess of Love to guide us, to guide me. Let's make this personal. To always be self-loving every day of my life. Let that be the intention that we seed right now as we invite these goddesses into our life. Quite simply, but profoundly, self-love. And then offer to these goddesses a promise. I promise to do my best to be self-loving every day. And also with this new image of these goddesses, let's invite them to help us remember and be in touch with our inner beauty. It is our inner flame of love that is our inner beauty, that is true beauty. And imagine right now at the center of your heart, there's this beautiful flame that's lit up. This is the flame of your heart. This is the flame of love. This is the flame radiating out. This light is your beauty. This is your gift that you're offering yourself right now, and just bask in that beauty, bask in that light that is you. If you are aware of your aura, you might feel it extend out to your aura. Just beautiful golden light, you're radiating. This is you. And then imagine that you're sharing this, not only with every woman, every goddess on the call at the present moment, but everyone who connects in later on and might watch this later, that we're all sharing our beauty, our love, our light. And that this is our birthright. This is part of the true act of service that we're here to embody. So just a little bit more time connecting to that. And since we're doing this as a simultaneously virtual gathering, individual and group gathering, for yourself, notice if there's anything that you can do later on today or this evening. Maybe it's soaking your feet in a salt bath. Maybe it's anointing yourself with some rose oil, or making yourself a cup of rose tea, chamomile tea, something that you can do physically in your day later today to take in, to enact this love, this beauty, to memorialize this. And this is just your own inner knowing. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right, so thank you guys. I guess at the close of this, I've talked for a long time. I wonder if anybody has anything to share either about their experience of all that information, or if there's something, as I mentioned at the start of our gathering, what does divine feminine mean to you? And that will likely continue. For me, it's definitely been evolving. And what does it being female mean to you? Does anybody have anything? It's not mandatory to share, but if you'd like to type anything in chat or unmute yourself, you can certainly do that. Well, I'll share first, because I guess that's the most important thing to start with. Divine feminine means to me, as I mentioned, it's ubiquitous, it's primordial, it's everywhere. And divine feminine and masculine in right balance remind us that there is no separation. And really, I feel like this resurgence of energy that's kind of been under the rug for a while, it's always been present. You know, the earth, we can pave cities with concrete, but Mama Earth is always right there. That's kind of how I feel about divine feminine, at least right now. And being female just simply means that I live in a female body. And I feel very grateful, because it means that for whatever reason right now, I feel called to do goddess work. And I love sharing this with all the men in my life as well, but also especially creating sacred space for women, because it's a good time for us to be doing this. So thank you guys, all of you guys who've gathered here live. If there's anything else you want to share, I'm going to give us a little bit of time before close. But if not, that's okay too. Yeah, I see some smiles. So this is our first gathering. We're going to do another gathering in about 4 weeks. And there'll be a new goddess, which is why I think it was perfect that we kind of got to consider recreating this story. The next goddess, I feel like her story is pretty much intact and will be really cool and empowering for us to remember. But yeah, feel free to write me or anything else. Also, if you guys have any questions or any inspirations that come through. Anybody else have anything they want to say before we close?
Hi, this is Alex. So I guess the main thing that like comes to me when I think about like the goddess energy stuff is like healing, I guess, or transformation, and like applying that, I guess, to the world that we live in whatever way feels right for us. I guess that's just kind of the main thing that just like swirls when we talk about that.
Yeah, I love that image. I often get an image of the goddess as, well, it's interesting. I think this is also important too, because as women, and I want to be very clear that I live a very privileged life in many senses, but also, you know, we know how to take emotional pain and to transform it. We know how to love. Many of us have been invited to love unconditionally, men too, but I think there's something really powerful about the transformative healing aspect that we often call unconditional love. But what it really means is it's not an eye for an eye. You know, we don't get through this by you know, meeting the depths of our pain out across society. That's already happened. That was what happened with Greece and Rome, and then it just happened all over again with, you know, the Spaniards in North America. So we know that there's a better way and that everybody's included. I think as the goddess, and I think as women, we kind of have this communal eye naturally. Maybe it's our third eye. Maybe it's just us knowing that there's a bigger picture out there. And so the healing that I see that the goddess is inviting us to is sort of that deep, where it drops the boundary of, you know, Republican versus Democrat. Those are really strong words, but you know what I mean? And it gets to the humanity of the issues and the really seeking healing. So thank you, Alex, for sharing that. That's at least what I resonate with about what you shared. And it feels a little new, but it also feels very old. It feels like something that we'll naturally know how to do. And words like unconditional love and compassion, but also power. It's not a disempowered state to choose compassion. It's a wise way to be able to find harmony and hold space. And I think of women in circles. We're coming out of linear culture. We're going to get into circle culture. And circle culture is everyone's around the circle and everyone gets to pass the rattle or pass the stick and talk because everybody's needed. And I think that is something that ancient women's cultures knew about and we'll get to remember as we go on this journey. So thank you for sharing. Kate. Latha says, thank you, Lisa, for the wonderful beginning. You are so welcome. I'm so glad to see your smiling face. Yes. And Kate says, a few months ago, I had the thought, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. Kate says, a few months ago, I had the thought, how would society look if it were run by midwives? Yeah, it's interesting. I think we kind of know, that's what I think why I shared that Hatshepsut video, because something about the way she articulated how that woman ruled was very goddess-like. It was very like, she wasn't after the ego. She wasn't looking for the best Instagram photo. She was literally looking to do the right thing and to see and to serve her people. And I think we ultimately know that serving, that loving ourselves and then being of service, that's how we heal. So thank you guys. This has been a really beautiful beginning. I'm blessed by each of you, and I look forward to the journey ahead. Cool. All right. Much love. Have a beautiful day.